Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate, especially in the fall, a Michigan Wolverine being so generous to an Ohio State Buckeye. And with that, I'd like to ask your permission to submit a couple of documents for the record without objection.
Without objection, so ordered.
Ranking Member Camp, thank you, members of this committee. We all believe that American manufacturers can outcompete, outperform, and outproduce anyone so long as our competition plays by the rules. For years, our employers have been asked to compete against the non-market-based foreign exchange policies of the People's Republic of China. U.S. manufacturing share of employment, which was 39% during World War II, dipped below 10% in 2008. And in those post-World War II years, we had a growing middle class, an opportunity for our citizens, and now we have an erosion of our middle class. It is now time for us as a country to have the guts to stand up and take a strong stand against the Chinese government. And we will hear from some multinational companies which have taken advantage of China's protectionist currency policies, and you will surely hear them complain that standing up to China will risk upsetting the Chinese. But let's be very clear. China's policy of currency manipulation violates international norms and trade laws. Article 4 of the International Monetary Fund's agreement states that member countries should, quote, avoid manipulating exchange rates in order to gain an unfair competitive advantage over other members, end quote, and defines manipulation to include, quote, protracted, large-scale intervention in one direction in the exchange market, end quote. This, of course, is exactly what China has been doing for years, blatantly violating the norms and standards of international trade which govern our world economy. China's unfair currency manipulation has especially hurt those small and medium-sized manufacturers who do not have the resources or the wherewithal to absorb the glut of artificially undervalued goods coming from China. In my district alone, you can go all throughout the district, Circle Mold and Machine in Talmadge, Ohio. They make molds for the auto industry. Backyard Buddy of Warren, Ohio makes electric-powered auto lifts. Wheatland Tube makes steel pipe. These companies and similar companies in your district just can't compete. Recently, the ITC ruled that China was subsidizing pipe and tube. The ruling affected nearly $2.8 billion in Chinese pipe that was shipped to the United States in 2008, the largest trade case of its kind ever filed against China. And after the ITC ruled against China, imposed anti-dumping and countervailing duties on subsidized steel pipe, Valoric, a French-owned company with a subsidiary in Youngstown, Ohio, went on to invest $650 million into an expansion of a plant in my district, creating 400 construction jobs, 350 permanent full-time positions. The nation stood up, we enforced our laws, we created a level playing field, and it led to much-needed economic development in Youngstown and Girard, Ohio. The International Monetary Fund, the U.S. Treasury Department, congressionally chartered U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, and many economists say that China's currency is undervalued by as much as 40%. Wheatland Tube, the company I mentioned earlier, competes directly with China. Chinese products landing on our shores of the United States are the same price as Wheatland Tube's raw material costs. How can we ask this company to compete against that kind of subsidy? The Bipartisan Currency Reform for Fair Trade Act, sponsored by myself and my Republican colleague who is here, Congressman Tim Murphy from Western Pennsylvania, addresses this currency manipulation by using internationally agreed upon World Trade Organization rules. Enacting legislation is the only viable option we have at this point to bring strong pressure on China and other countries with persistently undervalued currencies. 143 members have co-sponsored this bill, ranging from the most liberal in the Congress to the most conservative members of this Congress. The legislation has been endorsed by more than 250 unions, trade associations, and other organizations. When any foreign government deliberately undervalues its currency, the U.S. government can respond by imposing reasonable countervailing duties or anti-dumping measures. Special care has been taken to make the provisions of this currency bill consistent with WTO-relevant agreements and provisions. The bill defines the actionable offense as fundamental and actionable misalignment, and that determination relies on publicly available data on whether a currency is misaligned over an 18-month period and requires the use of IMF methodologies and guidelines for computing the magnitude of misalignment. In closing, Mr. Chairman, it's time for Congress to act to ensure fair treatment for American workers and American manufacturers, not the big guys who are fine, but the small and medium-sized people and businesses along the industrial Midwest. For 7 years, the Bush and Obama administration have tried the diplomatic approach with China on this issue, and it has failed. Only when China has been backed against the wall to make concessions, it has indicated that it would allow its currency to rise, and then almost immediately it backpedals. Legislation would put teeth into our government's effort to compel China and all other countries to comply with their responsibilities as our international partners. China's currency policies are slowly but steadily smothering what remains of American manufacturing. And without action, we will get outgunned in the race for green manufacturing, which is the future. It is time, Mr. Chairman, for us to act. I urge this committee and the Congress to pass the Currency Reform for Fair Trade Act. And thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you very much.